Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of June 1st, 2022, and welcome everyone back into the City Council chamber for this evening's meeting. The City Council is conducting our weekly council meetings hybrid. This will allow us to reach members of our community who wish to participate via Zoom or those who wish to attend in person in the chambers. It is our hope to continue this format to be as accessible as possible to the community. For those who wish to participate via Zoom, you may find the public comment registration form on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Select the Register here to provide comment via Zoom link, and you can fill out the form completely to speak on Zoom at a future council meeting. After the public comment form is submitted, you'll receive an email confirmation with the Zoom link and the phone number to the meeting. Participants need to submit the form at least 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Forms submitted after that time will not receive the link and the phone number to speak, but may still participate the date of the meeting by coming to the council chambers in person right up to the time that the meeting begins. Please note that we don't allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office, and we do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Excused?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vice President Tui.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Excused?
Councilmember Schwab.
Here.
President Stonecipher.
Here. Councilmember Schwab, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Council Vice President Tui to read the land acknowledgement.
Okay. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of May 25th, 2022?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Councilmember Tui seconds.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Franklin.
Good evening, President Stonecipher and council members. I have a few things this evening. First, I wanted to read a proclamation recognizing Gun Violence Awareness Day, which is coming up this Friday. So whereas every day more than 110 Americans are killed by gun violence alongside more than 200 who are shot and wounded, and on average there are nearly 16,000 gun homicides every year, and Washington has 810 gun deaths every year with a rate of 10.5 deaths per 100,000 people in Washington has the 39th highest rate of gun deaths in the U.S. And cities across the nation, including in Everett, are working to end the senseless violence and evidence-based solutions in protecting public safety in the communities they serve, and it's my highest priority. And the support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And local government and law enforcement officers know their communities best and are most familiar with local criminal activity, how to address it, and how are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And gun violence prevention is more important than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate gun violence after more than 2 years of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence. In January 2013, Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. To recognize her birthday in June, people across the United States have annually recognized the first Friday in June as National Gun Violence Awareness Day by wearing orange in tribute to Hadia Pendleton and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors and their loved ones. And whereas the City of Everett is renewing our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our children safe. Now therefore, I, Cassie Franklin, Mayor of the City of Everett, do hereby proclaim June 3rd, 2022 as Gun Violence Awareness Day. Thank you. So everyone should wear orange with me on Friday. And then I also wanted to announce or share that June is Pride Month. So June 1st kicks off Pride Month. The county had a celebration on the county campus today. The city will be having a celebration on June 25th at Forest Park. Families are welcome. And just it's a great time to celebrate our LGBTQ community. And there's a lot of events going on throughout the community. And then lastly, it is my honor and privilege to enthusiastically recommend Ramey Leonard to be appointed to Everett Municipal Court Position 2 to fill the seat and remaining term for Judge Laura Van Slyke, who is vacating her position. I will share that we had about a dozen applicants for this position, and I interviewed about a half a dozen of them, and it was a very talented pool. Ramey has a tremendous combination of education, training, experience, and is just born and raised to serve this community. She has the necessary balance of the knowledge and skill set, but also commitment and compassion for those that she serves, and I am confident that she is going to serve our community long into the future as our municipal court judge, and I enthusiastically ask for your support of this appointment.
Councilmember Ryan wholeheartedly moves.
Councilmember Toohey seconds the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'm going to go down the roll so we can make some comments if we'd like to. I'll start with Councilmember Ryan.
Great, yeah, absolutely enthusiastically support the enthusiastic appointment. I've had a chance to speak with Ramey before with her role at the tribes, and just her commitment and to justice through compassion and fairness is absolutely evident when you speak with her. So glad to have her on Team Everett.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I don't know Judge Leonard, but reading the information about her, she seems very well qualified, both in terms of skills and experience, with a wide range of populations, and will be an excellent choice. You know, as someone who's coached middle schoolers in robotics for a few years, I can also say that anyone who can escort and chaperone a large group of middle schoolers successfully across the country and back has a combination of judgment and temperament and quick thinking that should serve the city really well. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you. Vice President Toohey.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Ramey, and know you're going to do a great job. I think your background will just add so much to our court system, and we just look forward to having you around here. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Leonard, for all the preparation that you've done in your career, all the things that you've done, and the commitment to the community. And so you have prepared yourself well for this position.
Thank you. And Judge Leonard, I love to say that. I'm so pleased to see you coming into this position and helping out our community. Of course, Ramey is a lifelong Everett resident and has long and deep history here. And I know that you'll be looking out for the best interest of our city and our citizens. So thank you very much and congratulations. With that, Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes?
Vice President Toohey,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes.
And I would love to invite Judge Leonard forward to say a few words.
Well, first off, I want to thank the mayor and the council for your wholehearted support for appointing me to this position. And I've got to say, it really is a dream come true for me. I chose you just as much as you chose me. I've spent a lot of time on the bench all throughout our county. And what I learned over the last 9 years of doing that, and then just the 25 years that I've been working in the criminal justice system, is that Everett is not unique in the problems that we are faced with. I've watched Everett for 50 years now. I was born and raised here, as were my parents and one of my grandparents. And I've seen the challenges that we've faced, and I've seen some real huge successes. But the challenges that we are now faced with are complicated and complex. And they do really require cooperation, not one person or one branch of government can achieve that goal. It really has to be a group effort with all of the facets of a local government and all of the services that we have in the community and community members to really make this place a safe place and a welcoming and inviting place for everyone to live and raise their families. I chose to come back here and raise my kids here, and I hope that they choose to do the same, but I don't think that they're going to do that, or anybody is going to want to do that, if they can't be in this community and be safe and feel heard and valued. And so that's my goal going forward. One last thing I wanted to say is just a word of thanks to Judge Van Slyke. She's obviously not in this room at this moment, but I think it's worth mentioning that Judge Van Slyke, it's her fault that I ended up in these shoes, not just from retiring. But many, many years ago in 1996, I was an intern when I was in law school for the city of Everett. I did not think that I wanted to be a criminal attorney at all. And Judge Van Slyke, she was then a city attorney, convinced me to handle a criminal case in Everett Municipal Court in the old building, which those of you who are locals and old enough probably remember, some may not know. And it was that experience that really lit that fire in me to go into trial advocacy, to become a prosecutor, and to really devote my legal career not to private practice, but to using the skills that I have and the things that I've learned to help my community. And so that's my goal. Judge Van Slyke was my intern supervisor back in those days, and was just a huge role model to me. And so because she dedicated her entire career to helping our city, that really lit a fire in me to do the same. And so I'm so humbled and honored to serve as Everett Municipal Court Judge. And most of you hopefully will not see me in court, because if you do, that means that you're speeding and you shouldn't. So anyway, I want to thank everyone. I really, really am honored. It's a lifelong dream. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. With that, I have no further comment this evening. Thank you.
Thank
Congratulations.
We will now move on to public comment. Deb Williams, have we received any comments from the community for public comment this evening?
President Stonecipher, we received no written comment, but we do have one community member here to speak. Katie, if you'd please come up and give your name and your city, and then begin by, I'm so used to saying, please turn on your camera. Don't bother. Go ahead.
My name is Katie Langner, and I live right here in Everett. So I'm just going to read my notes. I hope that's okay.
That's fine.
I live at and own a house on Madison Street with my wife. Our street and house will be directly affected by the Madison Street Bike Lane project should it proceed. We purchased our house in 2019. When we purchased the house, it was with long-term intention. We love our house and yard and have worked to improve it, making it our own. We've replaced the original single-pane windows, put in insulation in both the attic and crawl space, eradicated the blackberries and rat problem, taking over the back portion of the backyard, put in a new driveway and driveway apron per city specifications, and are having our oil tank and furnace replaced with an electric furnace and a heat pump this month. The other stuff was prior. This month is the heat pump. We're working to slowly add biodiversity to the backyard to encourage birds, bees, and beneficial insects, not to mention several other improvements we have done to the interior. There is a plan in place to replace all the parking on both sides of Madison Street with buffered bike lanes. I respectfully ask you to not proceed with this plan. We already expanded our driveway to a barely 2-car driveway, and there's no room for further expansion. We are foster parents and have regular visitors to our house in the form of social workers, caseworkers, therapists, transporters, CASAs, etc. Additionally, my parents are aging and would like to be able to visit us at our house. All these people in our lives need a place to park when they come. I have been told people can park on the side streets, but there is not parking on the side streets where I live, and it would be quite a walk to find a place to park if they were successful. We only purchased this house because it did have the parking available in front. Had it not, we would not have bought it, no matter how much we loved it. But at this point, we are not financially able to move. With interest rates and inflation so high, it would not be feasible to buy a new house. But more than that, we don't want to move. We want to stay where we are. I do not understand why the city would consider taking away necessary parking for so many of their residents. In regard to the bike lanes, there are already connecting bike trails on other streets. Almost no one has long or large driveways on my street, so everyone uses street parking. We moved to Everett because we like Everett. We like that it's smaller and offers a slower pace than a bigger city. Consider also how you would feel if this is where you lived. Again, I respectfully ask you to not proceed with the Madison Street Bike Lane plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
And President Stonecipher, that's all I have. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We will move on to council comments and liaison reports, and I'm going to follow Council Vice President Tui's idea of changing it up. So I will start tonight with Councilmember Zarlingo, and then we'll go backwards.
All right, thank you. There we go. Just a couple of items. The Snohomish County Board of Health has voted to recommend reforming the Snohomish Health District as part of county government instead of an independent agency, as has recently been proposed. I just want to report out from that meeting as part of the Board of Health that there were lots of questions, lots of considerations of the trade-offs and the implications, as there should be. Most large counties do it the way that we're headed, assuming that the county council votes that way. Although in some ways the decision for us was a little more difficult because the cities in Snohomish County worked so effectively together, especially during the pandemic. We really didn't have the outstanding problems to solve, like lack of cooperation, a lack of communication, misallocation of resources, or politicizing the decisions. So with that, however, I think we'll still be in better shape, and as Executive Summers said, one benefit of the new arrangement is that it'll allow the county to be able to provide more health services themselves going forward. So I think it's a general step forward, and some of it also comes because of a state law revision that limits the elected members of the board to no more than half, and increasing representation by health professionals, consumers of health district care, and some others. So I guess I do want to note that that was well and thoroughly considered. I think it's going to be a step forward, but because this city and the county worked so well together, I don't think we're going to see real differences in behavior. And lastly, the Puget Sound Regional Council, at their General Assembly meeting, voted to approve the recently developed Regional Transportation Plan, one of these massive, every few years updated documents. And you'll see that in the priorities that come partly for federal money that comes to our region in the years to come. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. We'll go backwards to Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. Happy Pride Month, everybody. I've had a chance to go to the Snohomish County Pride event earlier today, and it was well attended, and it was really exciting, and just a great way to kick off the month. And there's a number of events all across the county, including the Everett event coming up at Forest Park on June 25th, so hope to see folks there. And it was a great way to kick off the month and a reminder of my commitment to an Everett that's welcoming for everyone, regardless of how you live, what you look like, or who you love. So I had a chance last Thursday to go on a really awesome tour with the fire department. I got to see a few of our new paramedics out in the field too, so that was really exciting. Though I didn't get a chance to go on a fire department call and see them in action on a call, I did get to see them in action at the firehouse and was just really impressed and touched by the way that the firefighters have a community where they reach out to each other and know about their personal lives and just check in and support each other. And that was just a really great thing to see. I also had a chance to sit in on a hazardous materials training, which was fascinating. And it was also amazing to see just the amount of tedious work that goes into a training of this nature and how everyone naturally did their part to lend a hand to help with setup and takedown. Everybody was doing their part to chip in. And it was just a really great like peekaboo view into the world of what our Everett Fire Department's able to do and how well they work together. So just kudos to such a great team, and special thanks to Chief Digdon for answering all of my questions and taking me around and having a chance to meet everybody. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, thank you. I got to attend a couple of nice events. Everett is just a great place to live. There is always something going on. Of course, this weekend was Cruising Colby. What a great an event. And I was there most of Monday, and it was the Wash and Shine Day. And wow, it was just, I don't know how many thousands of people there. Does anyone know? I mean, it had to be a couple of thousand. It was really nice event. And then also, of course, the Snohomish County Pride Month kickoff was a nice event today. So, and then also, we had a budget committee meeting this last week here, and there was some good news and some bad news. The good news is sales tax and B&O tax is up. The budget seems to be in okay shape, mostly due to our inability to find good people in the various departments, and that's been a big challenge for the mayor's staff, and I know they're working hard at it. More of the challenging news is the continuing forward in next year's budget. It's going to be a difficult time. We don't know if there's a recession and sales tax and B&O tax starts dropping. I know construction spending was up this last year, so those three things are going to have a lot to do with the economy. So the mayor's staff and all of us have a lot of heavy lifting to do here in the next few months. So just hope for the best here. The economy keeps going forward, and we can get through this next year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember or Council Vice President Tui?
Yes, thank you. So just want to thank the mayor for that gun violence proclamation today. Really appreciate that. And I know that staff is looking into some ways that we might be able to have some gun control measures as a city. And I remember, it's been a few years, but we had the buyback program on guns, and we also were giving out gun locks. So would love to see us add those to the list too. So. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. For my report, I too attended Cruising Colby on Monday. It was very well attended. Weather was nice and really fun to see. I saw a car like my parents had when I was a kid, so that was really fun. It was much nicer than my parents had, but it was the same car. So that was really great. And I will just echo, we had a budget committee over the past week. And today, the Joint Policy Board for the Community Transit, Everett Transit combination discussions met and furthered our discussion there. We had a lot of good information today about the financial ramifications or sort of the status of the agencies individually. And then I will also add my my comments about Pride Month and reminder that in 1969 in New York City, Pride Month started as an uprising against police violence. And now we see so many peaceful celebrations in our community, and looking forward to having that family-friendly event that we will have at the end of the month, and many other things for our residents to do. That's all I have. Do we have an update from administration?
No comments this evening, thank you.
Thank you. And we will move to city attorney. Do we have anything for us tonight, Mr. Rammerman?
No comments, no executive session tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the 6 consent items?
Councilmember Tui moves the consent items.
Councilmember Schwab, second.
A motion and a second for the consent agenda. Will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes. Move to item 7. Item 7 is a public hearing. I'll read it. Council Bill 2205-18. This is the second, third, and final reading and public hearing. Adopt the proposed ordinance amending Ordinance 2918-06, Ordinance 3623-18, and Ordinance number 3668-19 regarding fare changes. And this hearing remains open from last week. Before I ask if there are any further comments or questions from council, do we have any additional staff presentation this evening?
No, President Stonecipher, but I'm happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Great, thank you. Public hearing is open. Deb Williams, do we have anyone signed up to speak for the public hearing this evening?
President Stonecipher, we do not.
Thank you. I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Do I hear a motion?
So moved?
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes, and now we'll go for council member questions, and I'm going to go in the same order again, starting with Councilmember Zarlingo.
No further questions or comments from me.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan?
Yes, thank you. I have a bunch of questions. So at last week's meeting, we talked about our fare box recovery and that it's currently 7%, and that with the proposed fare reductions, it's going to reduce to about 4%. Can you share more about the dollar amount that equates to?
Well, yes, I will. Excuse me. And to clarify, we're currently at about 4%. We were at 7% before the pandemic. And so it's a loss of about $800,000 from where we would have been. And we're currently looking at about just a little bit less than $1 million projected in fare box for 2022. And the proposal to go fare-free for youth would reduce that by $100,000. So we'd be at about $800,000. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. And about how much is it in administrative fees to, administrative costs to have fares and issue cards and accounting systems and?
So the largest cost of our fare system is our partnership with the ORCA program. And we have two costs. One, our somewhat sunk capital costs that we're committed to, which is about $832,000. We've paid about $439,000 of that so far. The balance of that will be paid off in 2023. And then ongoing, we have operational costs, which is our share of the program based on our participation in the program of all of the agencies in Puget Sound region. And that cost varies between $100,000 and $150,000 a year, depending on our slice of the pie. And I will tell you, we have the smallest slice of the pie. So the other costs that are associated with collecting fares that could potentially not be paid. It's our armored car cost, which are probably between $50,000 and $100,000 a year. And then we have an agreement with Community Transit specifically to help manage the ORCA call center. Instead of having two call centers, we pay a fee to them of $50,000 a year. And that is the known cost that we have. All the other costs are embedded in FTE that all do other things.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. So with the the new fare structure proposal, can you share more about, I guess we'll start with the timing for approval. So I understand there's a deadline by which we need to adopt the new fares in order to be eligible for the Move Ahead Washington funding, is that right?
That's correct. The official deadline is October 1st. And you may be asking, why did we want to do it by July 1st? Mm-hmm. And that is really because we wanted our youth to ride the bus for free in the summer. Mm-hmm. And we have so many great things happening this summer in Everett. We wanted to get ahead of that game and make that available.
So adopting it tonight will set the ball in motion to have that taken care of by July 1st then?
That's correct. We are prepared to launch this July 1st.
Great, love it. Let's see. So with the new fare structure and determining the age of youth, how will that be determined? So I mean, it's obvious that, 6-year-olds going to qualify for the youth fare, but for a 17-and-a-half-year-old, how will that be determined or enforced, or what can they use to get on a bus for free?
Well, the region is going to adopt and the working title of this is the Free Youth Transit Pass. And the Free Youth Transit Pass will be an ORCA product. It will be available to everybody, all youth, for free. And the language we want to use is ages that everybody can ride for free from 0 to 18, or through 18. Youth who are ages 6 through 12 will be encouraged to use a free youth transit pass. Those who are ages 13 through 18 will be expected to use the pass. And the whole purpose of this is to get people used to using the pass like the adults use. You tap on the bus, that's your fare payment. You tap to get on the train or the light rail. And so as we develop the riders of the future, we want them to develop the right kinds of habits to be a good rider in the future.
I agree. Great, thank you. So I have a few amendments I would like to propose, but I'd be happy to wait until other council members share their comments and then come back.
Thank you.
That's
Let's
okay?
go down the line once, and then we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, I think you asked one of the questions I had, and that was about fare enforcement. So everyone will be required to have some sort of card then.
So I will admit that this is a tricky path we're walking, because the legislation that allows this to happen was really clear that we can't deny service for somebody who qualifies or appears to be qualified. But what we can do is set up some guidelines and some encouragements and some expectations, and through our multiple education programs through all the transit agencies, at least in the Puget Sound region, to create a standard of accepted behavior, really. But what we won't do is put the driver in the position of saying, oh, you don't look like you're old enough, or you look too old to be riding the bus. So there is some ambiguity in this, but I think the vast majority of the people, especially when the free transit pass is available on your cell phone, then we expect that that's how most people will probably use it. There's other things to help younger students to use a free transit pass that might be a wearable, something that they can use as their transit pass. So all those things are being developed by the ORCA program and will be launched in the next year or so.
Oh, and then the other question you touched on a little bit I had was, this is a joint effort with King County and Pierce County then also?
King County, Pierce County, Community Transit, Sound Transit, and Kitsap Transit, and Washington State Ferries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey. Council Vice President Toohey.
I just have one question. I think you answered it last week, but I'm going to ask it again so I remember. So the state legislation, it mandated that was 18 was the age group, under 18 and under?
18 and under, so
That was-
through,
okay.
up to your 19th birthday.
Okay, all right, that's all. Thank you. That's what
Thank you. And so I'll ask my questions. It's really exciting to do this. I'm wondering, what is our outreach plan? I agree with you that it's a really important policy work to get people into a bus pass so that they are using that and thinking of it carefully. And I'm wondering, do we have an opportunity to visit high schools and issue cards there? Or how do they have to get, because I always imagine there's some central office that the ORCA card has to be purchased at.
Well, there are a number of things in play, but because schools will be out soon. The first thing we're doing is we have currently 700 cards that the school bought for students. And we have a campaign happening even as we speak that says, hang on to your card. Because electronically in the back office, we're going to turn that into a free youth pass.
Got it.
And so that will reduce the amount of passes that we have to initially hand out. And then our campaign will take people out to the schools. We'll also encourage people through the summer to come to Everett Station and get their free pass. And part of it is a lot of people have youth passes. Maybe their parents bought them a youth pass and it has value on it. And so currently the policy is that you would pay a $10 transfer fee, and that seemed like really onerous. So we're waiving that transfer fee. And then if they can transfer that to an adult card, they could, mom and dad bought that card and they can transfer that value. They can do that for free. Or if they want to get a new card, we will give them a new card without charging them the normal card fee of $3. And if they insist on having money, then they can go through the process of making that claim, and then the city's process will reimburse them. But we will certainly encourage them to use the quicker transfer fee. So that's one thing we'll be doing all through the end of the year to make sure that these cards get retired from youth cards with value to free youth cards.
That sounds good. That's all I have for now. We'll go back to Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. So I agree, and the intent of the legislation from Move Ahead Washington was to increase ridership and increase access to ridership. So the amendments that I'm proposing today are to increase access. And so I wanted to start, and I also wanted to mention too that I think a good part of legislation is reviewing what has happened. So I'd like to propose these as part of a pilot program, so that 1 year from the date of these amendments, we can come back and take a look at if it's working or if it's not working, and then just reevaluate at that time. So my first proposed amendment is I'd like to make a motion to increase the definition of youth to the age of 21 as a pilot project with a review of this rate change 1 year after implementation to determine effectiveness.
Amendments on the table? Let's get we need to get a second, or we don't have anything to talk about.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll go down the roll now. I'm going to start with Councilmember Zarlingo and do it the crazy way.
Well, I have a question about the interaction then with the state law on this and Move Ahead Washington. We'd be changing the definition to something different than what is part of their intention. I'd like to know if that's an issue here or not.
I mean, certainly the council has the prerogative to do whatever it wants to do. You could, I think as might be proposed, you could grant free fares to anyone you'd like. I think staff would strongly recommend remaining consistent with the rest of the region, which is 18 years and younger.
Okay, yeah, so what the state law establishes then is essentially a minimum in the sense of up through 18, and the rest of that is the discretion of the council.
I mean, I think it's a requirement to benefit from these funds. You have to provide fare-free ridership to those 18 and younger, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councilmember Schwab. Since she's-
I just have, I have a concern that I'll bring up again, and that was the validation process. I really don't want our buses and our transit systems to turn into housing projects. So does changing the ridership just to 21, has that been considered, and what kind of effects that it may have?
Well, I'll focus us on the fact that this is a regional way of adopting this particular thing. Something like this is happening throughout the state, but we happen to have an ORCA system that has the existing partnership, and the intent is to keep it consistent across all agencies. So it would create some confusion among the riding public if it was only in Everett that you could ride for free at 21. And I think the other thing is that I don't know that 3-year difference is going to really change. I'm not sure what the concern is. We just might, we'll just have more people riding on the bus for free, people who are presumably able to pay at that point in their lifetime. So.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tui?
Yeah, I just, Tom kind of just said what I was gonna, my concerns were that this is a regional legislation, and it would be confusing for folks going to Seattle or wherever and not, and then all of a sudden have to pay. And I just think we should be starting out a whole new program. We should be consistent with what everybody's doing, and if we want to evaluate it in a year or 6 months or whatever to see if we want to expend it, other counties might want to also, but I think doing it on our own would just make it too confusing starting the program off fresh. So I don't think I can support this particular amendment.
For my comments, I'll just say that I hear that I too want to increase access and ridership. I think those are really important goals. Tom, can you remind me what, we talk about fare box recovery, and my recollection is that sort of the policy goal was always to be at like about 12% of fare box recovery. Was it that high, or am I thinking of more regional services?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we've never exceeded 10% in our best days. And because we don't have a big commuter market, and because we already have a lot of people, many of our riders are already senior and disabled qualified, that's only 50 cents a ride. And so we expect that we would have a low fare box recovery. 7 or 8% was pretty good for us. And being half of that now, really because mostly we have half the ridership that's coming back, so we might get back to 7 or 8%, but I don't know that we would ever really exceed that.
Okay. And so if we were to go to this 21, what happens to a 19-year-old who has this free card, and then they get off one of our buses at the Mukilteo Ferry and want to board there with their card?
They would be
What
expected to pay.
happens? Okay.
Because when they wouldn't have, well, I guess that's one thing, is that the Orcas system is not set up to have a free card in Everett at 21, and that same fare product only at 18 in King County. Or for that matter, at Community Transit, which is the next bus over.
So then
it's not really
conversely-
designed to allow that.
So conversely, how are our bus drivers going to know if someone's a 19-year-old and they have the free card
Well,
versus?
if they have a free card, when people get their card, they're going to register it, and it sets their birth date. That's how we use youth cards now, and then they expire. So the intent is that when they turn 19, that card will become an adult card.
And so they will board our bus and we will say, you're an adult?
There's no money on your card. You need to load some money on your card. Make sure you go to the customer service center and put some money on your card.
So I'm hearing some operational details, and I'm an operations
Yeah.
person, so I'm worried
Yeah.
about how we would manage that. It's, it's not an unsound idea, but I just think that I have a lot of questions about that. And the other thing I'd be curious to know is like how many people, what is our fare recovery right now for people between 18 and 21? And I'm sure you have that somewhere.
I do not, because there's no way for us to actually measure that. We
it.
have youth, which is through age 18 now, and we have adult, older than that. So that 19, 20, 21 shows up as an adult, and I don't know what percentage they are of the total adult population.
Got it, okay. Thank you. Any further comments before we motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of things. I think that when I think about high school seniors and when they get to around 18 or 19, that they might be finishing their senior year of high school, and then to switch to paying for bus fare, I think it could be cumbersome. And if our stated goal is to establish riders of the future, then increasing youth access to the age of 21 makes a lot of sense to me. And the Washington Department of Transportation baked into the Move Ahead Washington package is a series of grant programs, including the Transit Coordination Grant Program, which helps with providing administrative costs for partnerships between transit agencies to help determine and help to work out those wrinkles of, discrepancies between eligibility and fares and whatnot. So utilizing those funds might be helpful to iron out those wrinkles. So that's my addition.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Given the operational complexities of doing this differently than other counties and other municipalities at the introduction, and Councilmember Ryan's proposal about a pilot program, I guess I see wisdom in kind of doing what we're headed to now in the through 18 years old as the pilot program around the region, establishing more ridership that way, getting past this initial stage, using that for this first year, and then as we come to the end of this first year, then considering working with the other municipalities and counties, the other parts of the region, to, if we think it's that successful. We know the numbers. We've got some recovery from the pandemic and hopefully some clarity on what the economy is doing. At that point, maybe working together to expand it region-wide to 21 if we think that's a good idea at that point. But I am concerned about the uncertainties, the unanticipated consequences if we do that alone in the meantime.
Any other questions or comments? We are voting on the amendment to increase the definition of youth to age 21. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
No.
Vice President Tui.
No.
Councilmember Schwab.
No.
President Stonecipher.
No. Okay, we're back to our original motion, but did you have more? Were there any other?
Yes, I had a few more. I think based on the vote, I will skip the next two amendments that I was going to propose, but I would definitely like to, in doing research on different fare structures from around the region, Skagit Transit has free fare for veterans, and I think that that would be a wonderful addition to the matrix that we have. So I would like to make a motion to also include free fare for veterans.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to include free fare for veterans, and I'll go back to my crazy method, and that starts with Councilmember Zarlingo.
I guess one question about any of these amendments, and maybe this goes to legal, we're doing a third reading here, but if we are amending this, do we start the clock on that again?
No, we don't need to. Amendments don't require additional readings.
Okay. I'd have to say I don't know what to anticipate in terms of the consequences of this logistically, and again, in compatibility with other municipalities, so I'll look for others to clarify there.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
I guess it comes back to this validation. If we were talking about different groups, is there a process that a veteran would have to go through? Once again, sorry to keep harboring on this one thing. And
No, I think it's the most important question.
Yeah.
And again, it would be something that would be available for only people on Everett Transit. And we currently have a fare product called the Freedom Fare. It's a free ticket. It's used only in the city of Everett on Everett Transit buses. It's not transferable to anybody else. So if council wanted us to establish a fare product, which would be local, we would have to come up with some sort of verification system. Just talking off the top of my head, we have the customer service center at Everett Station. We have a veterans center in the vicinity. We could use some partners to help us do that. And then it would just probably be a matter of creating some sort of flash pass that says I've gone through the process. It would not be an ORCA product, but since it's a free fare, we wouldn't have to worry about transferability or anything. So it's something that we could do if council so desires.
thank you.
Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. I mean, I like the idea. I would like to allow staff to kind of flush out the logistics of the veterans piece. in different legislation. I would really like to get this passed so that we can get the July 1, but I do think we need to really think about the logistics on how it would all happen and the impact on staff to just pull out the veteran piece. And to me, it's not that as related to this, because this is related to the grant, the Washington State one, and the ORCA card and the partnerships that we have there. But, you know, I wouldn't mind looking at a package for the veterans after it's been vetted by staff.
Tom, remind me, I feel like I've been here too long. Don't we have some programs where we actually distribute our bus passes through other agencies? Am I confusing maybe disabled?
Well, we have, for instance, we used to have an agreement with the Navy base for active duty and veterans, and the Navy purchased passes from us. This actually predates ORCA, right? A lot of things
Right.
predate ORCA.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking, because I predate ORCA.
Yeah, as do I. So, I guess, you know, the advantage of being a city-run transit system is that you can have unique programs
Sure.
if you are willing to have them work only in your city and not expect the other partners to honor them.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the years, we've had different programs. We had, once upon a time, the senior center had a senior center pass, and that was a free ride. So we've had things like that.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of, and so that has changed, got it. Well, for my part, I guess, I think what could be helpful for me would be to have more staff analysis of this. I think there's some operational issues that have been reared, and I don't know that those are unsurmountable, but I just want to understand a little bit more about what the cost is to administer some of these extra programs and what the other implications could be of doing so. And from my part, I would also like to see some of the financial implications of this. As one who is sitting on the CTET Joint Policy Board, we are in conversations about possibly merging our system with community transit, and they're clearly in a totally different place on this than us. They're a regional transit provider. They're not going to be providing, you know, free fares in our community if we do that. My guess is that would not be where they'd be at. So I am also a little concerned about setting expectations for our communities, you know, what they think they're going to get out of their transit agency that may or may not be short-lived. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what that all means to us, and maybe some small analysis about what that would mean to our discussions with community transit over some of the combinations and service delivery models that we are thinking of working with them on. And so from my part, I would tonight prefer to pass what we have before us and ask administration to do some work. And Tom, maybe you can bring back some more analysis of these things to see if we can roll this out at a later date. I don't think that I mean, we obviously want to get the youth pass going as soon as we can. But I am thinking that there's not a ton of urgency on this at this point, but sometime before the end of the year, I'd like to have something before us so that we could consider and just sort of see what that might mean. Perhaps that would give us time for the Joint Policy Board to have some more discussions too, and see, you know, where that's going in terms of the future direction of any conversations that we might be having. So that would be for me, but of course we will all be voting on this. And I'll ask Councilmember Ryan if she would like to have a last word here.
Nothing more from me, thanks.
Thank you. Anything?
I would like to, Council President Stonecipher and Council Vice President Tui, I think I'm along those same lines. I think we have something that we've had presentations on, analysis of, a chance to digest, and several readings of. And now I think I favor going ahead with what we have in the trajectory, but I also would like to know what other kinds of benefits, what other kinds of programs might be helpful, their cost and their implications. As another member of the Joint Policy Board, this is lots of detail, and I don't want to have unintended consequences. I'd like to understand it as clearly as possible before voting on a new measure.
Thank you. Any last questions before we vote on the amendment? We're voting on the amendment that would provide fare free veterans ridership. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
No.
Vice President Tui,
No.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
No. So the amendment does not, it fails, and we are back now to the original motion. Any other comments on the original motion or any other amendments to be added? All right. Clerk, will you please take the roll on the main motion?
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
Vice President Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We are moving on to our action item. Item 8, reject SRV Construction's bid and award the construction contract for the water main replacement W project to Quilceda Excavation Incorporated in the amount of $1,843,150.92. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Seconded.
Motion and a second. Do we have any questions or comments? Councilmember Zarlingo.
I'd like to thank staff for a good summary of why they made the recommendation they did and the choice that they did, and especially the clarity on upholding the conditions of the bid. I think that helps us all keep integrity in this process, avoid future legal problems, and make sure we're doing the public's business as transparently and completely, thoroughly as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I'll just say that I'm noticing that we're seeing more bid errors, I would say, in our work, and so I don't know what's going on in the community. If Ryan Sass has any insight on this, are we seeing more erroneous bids or bids that require rejection? I don't remember. We've had a spate of them recently. Are contractors
evening.
getting sloppy?
No, we do see them from time to time, perhaps maybe a little higher than normal, but I wouldn't say that it's outside of our experience level, yeah.
Okay, great. Just a statistical fluctuation. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
Vice President Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes, and that brings us to the end of our agenda. With no further business and no executive session, we are now adjourned.